Hello everyone, this is Wes Henson, pastor of the Ridge Church. And the Ridge Church campus is located at 7350 Old Highway 13 in Carbondale, Illinois. And I want to thank you for joining me today as we give a quick on-the-go summary of this week's small group Bible study. And this is for the week of January the 30th, 2022 at the Ridge Church. This is week 2 of the study, How to Avoid Life's Pitfalls. And our first session last week was titled The Pitfall of Betrayal. And we were looking in Genesis chapter 37. And so this series follows the life of Joseph. Now this week's title is The Pitfall of Temptation. And we've moved on to Genesis chapter 39. And we'll be looking specifically at verses 1 through 12. So if you click on the links, you're going to find a study guide. You'll find a summary of this week's lesson, along with a few handouts. And then join us on campus, on the Ridge Church campus, Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Or you can join us online Tuesday night at 6:30 on Facebook or our website. And we will go into greater detail. So the point of this week's study is this: remembering what is at stake helps us overcome temptation. Let me give you a little background of our study today. Now, Jacob had 12 sons, but he favored one son, that was Joseph, over all the others. And he validated that preference for Joseph by giving him a brightly colored robe. We call it the robe of many colors. And that robe suggested that Jacob thought of Joseph as being superior over his other brothers. At the end of our last session, last week, Joseph was being hauled off to Egypt. He was being disowned and sold into slavery to the Ishmaelites by his own brothers. And he had little hope that the dreams that he once shared with them would ever come true. In fact, that was one of the reasons why they were so upset with Joseph, because he had this dream and he explained it to them, and they were going to be bowing down in front of him, serving him, and that was just wrong in their view. So Joseph, rather than seethe with anger and try to seek revenge because of his plight, he chose to bloom where he was planted and to trust God to see him through. Okay, so let's pick up today in Genesis chapter 39 and looking at verses 1 through 7. So get your Bible, take a look, and let's review this passage here. So Joseph was sold to the Ishmaelites by his brothers, and they in turn sold him to an Egyptian named Potiphar. Potiphar was the captain of Pharaoh's guards. And so in spite of Joseph's circumstances and in spite of his situation and seemingly lost cause, God was with him and at work in his life. As Joseph was sold to Potiphar, Joseph earned Potiphar's favor. He became Potiphar's personal attendant. He was in charge of his master's household and managed all of his assets. Potiphar entrusted Joseph with the authority to manage all that he owned. And so the Lord blessed Potiphar because of Joseph. And so for Joseph, by and large, life was going pretty well. Things were looking good. So let me make this quick observation in looking at these first 7 verses of chapter 39. And that is this: we need to be on guard against temptation, especially when things are going well for us. Look at verses 6 and 7. The verse says, "Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after some time his master's wife looked longingly at Joseph and said, 'Sleep with me.'" And so in our next verses here, we're going to see Joseph's response to the temptations that he faced. And we're looking at verses 8, 9, and 10. Verse 8 gives us Joseph's response. It says simply, "But he refused." Joseph flatly refused to be tempted by Pharaoh's wife's offer. In fact, he urged her to see things from his perspective. He challenged her to look at the authority that her husband had given him. Potiphar had trusted Joseph with everything that he possessed. And Joseph demonstrated for his master that he was a loyal slave who would be a good steward of all things entrusted to him. So when we experience temptation, and we all will, we must have our standards and our convictions already in place, as Joseph did. And the standards we set come to our rescue and deliver us from making foolish choices. So in the next verses 11 through 12, we're going to discover how Joseph ultimately dealt with this temptation. Verse 11 says, "Now one day he went into the house to do his work, and none of the household servants were there. She, Potiphar's wife, grabbed him by his garment and said, 'Sleep with me.' But leaving his garment in her hand, he escaped, and he ran outside." So Joseph had tried to explain his way out. He tried to figure his way out, but ultimately his only response to the temptation presented to him by Potiphar's wife was to run away. So let's take a look at some applications to our lesson for today. Number one application is to take stock. Ask God to help you form a plan to fight repeating temptations, and then trust God to help you stand your ground. Maybe there is a temptation that seems to continually repeat itself in your life. Well, ask the Lord to give you a plan, and then ask the Lord to help you follow that plan as you resist those repeating temptations. Application number two, run away. Maybe there is something that you need to remove from your life, a temptation that you need to remove from your life or your house in order to avoid the temptation. And then application number three is find a partner. Find someone with whom you can discuss your temptations with and who will hold you accountable. A partner the same sex that you are, and so that you can talk back and forth. Okay, let's wrap this up. We may not be tempted in the same way that Joseph was tempted, but we can be assured that we will all face temptation. And through the life of Joseph, the Bible gives us an example of how we can move beyond the temptation and make right choices. And bottom line for Joseph was he just ran away from it. So if you click on the links below or the links above, depending on how you're viewing this video, you'll find a study guide, a summary of this week's lesson, and also a few handouts. And then, I invite you to join us on the Ridge Church campus Sunday morning at 9 a.m. or online Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook or our website as we go into detail. Okay, we will talk to you later. Thank you for joining us. Bye now.